Hello, hello, my artwork is coming along and I'm painting Kenny, Dave and myself. Kenny is the green formation. I am the one in the middle, and on the other side is Dave. I just did the rough outlining now. I just drew him on paper with a marker just recently when he was lying here on the couch, and then I transported that, just visually transported it over to the canvas, and I outlined roughly for my sketch. It's not like the sketch, it's become more abstracted, but I can show you my sketch too real quick. I have it here in my bookkeeping book where I occasionally put a sketch in as well. So this is, I don't know if it shows. This is my sketch of Dave. It is a rough sketch with a marker, and then I just transported that over onto the canvas. So with acrylic paint, and it's pretty nice. So now I'm basically just filling out the colors, and slowly filling out the colors and trying to get some bit more perspective into it and depth. So that'd be awesome. And I painted my own face also. Well, it was my own face. I took a photo with the tablet of my profile. Then I made a drawing of the profile in a more simplistic way, kind of Robert Crumb, as Rita called it. She says I paint like Robert Crumb. And so kind of cartoonish, but I mean realistic cartoonish, sort of a little bit abstracted, a little bit bolder, yeah? So a little bit more simplistic, I guess. And so I put, the outlining, the main features, the main characteristics of the outer surface of the form, and then just a few wrinkles and stuff like this that characterizes my face. And I put that also in the notebook, and then I transferred this over onto the canvas. It's not finished yet. I still have to do some nipping and tucking, literally. I really got the nose too big. I mean, I have a big nose, but I got the nose way too big. And it's not 100% proportional, but it's approximately where at least I can recognize my face somewhat in that. And the hair, all of this has to still be just worked on, and the body as well. So it's completely unproportional, the whole body. I actually have a very long back, and this looks like I have like a real short back or something. But initially it was an abstract face, and then I thought, oh, why not put my own face onto this rather Picasso-esque, abstract, thick shape, cubic type of body. So yeah, I think that gives it a bit of a mystery, and the rest is gonna be flowers, plants, grass, and it's gonna be very green, that picture, and I really like it, and I am in love with those pastels, particularly with those pastel greens. When I was a child, like 6, 7, or 8, I was already fascinated with pastel greens. And I remember my dad had, because he's an architect, he always, and they didn't have computers at that time, and he did his own coloring of the floor plans and of the entire. Sometimes he did landscapes in addition to the buildings, and so you had to have a huge color palette of pencils, color pencils, not lead pencils, but the color the colorful pencils. I don't know what material that is, but it's like a hard material, and you you can make sketches with that and stuff. Not like crayon, but it's very thin, like a pencil, but it draws in color. And he had these huge color palettes, and with all colors that you can imagine, including all kinds of gray shades and pastel shades in between. And I was particularly fascinated with the pastels. That it's, it's so chalky and earthy and just creamy and delicious, and I just love it. And I happen to really like the way the people painted this house. I got very, very lucky. This house was totally meant for us. So we got issues, but that's why we got it. So, but they really painted this well. I like those. I like the pastel peach, light peach tones that they used, and it was a lady who did that. And women have an affinity to the peachier type of tones, and so I, including myself, and it was just perfect for me. And they have done such a marvelous job. And then the housing market crashed, and that poor woman, it's terrible. So I feel really terrible for all these people. And then, as Warren Buffett said, be greedy when other people are fearful. You want to buy when no one is buying, when the market is crashing. And it is very unfortunate, to grab something that someone else lost. But that is the market reality of it. It it's not going to change it by me not buying it. Then someone else is going to buy it and make something else out of it or whatever. That's the reality of it. And everything is involved. And that's not unethical. What's unethical is when someone builds a house out of old growth wood. That's really unethical. I don't know what they built this house out of. They certainly used archaic materials, but it was an architect, and the shape and everything was very nice. I don't like crawl spaces though. That's not very practical. But yeah, the overall shape and the landscaping, very, very well done. The contractor skimped, and there was a big lawsuit and all of this. But yeah, they did a very good job with the colors. And then I added some more. I made one closet in peach, and so to compliment the lady and her choices of colors, in addition to the other rooms also downstairs. And very nice. And also the rug colors, and it's very good choices. Pastels, I love, love, love pastels, and that's why I got these curtains here. They're pastel, and so that's very nice. But yeah, I felt better today, and we went yesterday. We went to the different hiking trails, and it was good. And I first thought I had no energy at all, and but then I systematically energized myself with the Wim Hof technique. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Wim Hof. I think I mentioned him before. Wim Hof is a Danish motivational meditation teacher, and please look him up because he is revolutionary, and he improves people's lives even if you don't buy anything or pay anything. He's on YouTube, he's on Facebook, and his YouTube videos are highly instructional and informational, just the videos alone. And I have applied his methods, and there's not much complication included in all of this. It is very straightforward, and it is very, very simplistic. You don't have to go through all kinds of ascetic practices or yoga or kundalini practices or sitting in a cave for 10 years. You don't have to do this to achieve what Wim Hof is teaching. This is absolutely fantastic. All it requires is that you have a moment of stillness, relative stillness, that is. We can never have complete sensory deprivation, and we shouldn't. There's no need for it. For example, I would freak out if I have total sensory deprivation. Happened to me once in a gallery. There was an artist, I think from the United States, that exhibit was in Germany, and I went in there with my friend Jasna, and we sat there, and there was suddenly the door closed, and there was total sensory deprivation. And what happened is I immediately hallucinated, and it just goes to show what kind of chaos, pain, and fear and terror and torment there is in this brain of mine. And it just shocked me, because sensory deprivation brings out, that's the ultimate stillness, that brings out the horrors, the past, the the images that the brain makes of the horrors of the past, even if those images are just symbolic. So the horror of love deprivation can take on monstrous faces and shapes that the body gives it, the brain gives it, so. But what Wim Hof is teaching is very simple. You just sit there, and you don't resist anything. Don't resist. The more you resist the thought, the worse it becomes. And you visualize basically that your body is eating all the invaders and pathogens, and the body knows perfectly well how to take care of all of this. And you envision it, and you keep your mind focused on this for like 10 minutes, and believe it or not, it works 100%. I'm living proof for this because I practice this. I practiced that last night. I have a bit of heart problems because I have a lot of fear and stress that in turn then can cause the body to develop cholesterol, even if you're a vegan, and then that can harden itself in tissue, or like in the shoulder, or the capillaries around the heart and so on, and it can cause heart pain and it can cause the shoulder to have the, that like a pain in the muscles, where I had a pain in the shoulder muscles last night, and when the arm falls asleep or something, but it was kind of like almost like a little bit of like a muscle spasm sort of thing, where it started to become dense and painful, and I knew right away that's caused by stress and cholesterol. And I did the Wim Hof meditation, and within 10 minutes the pain was completely gone. I envisioned my body dissolving all of the cholesterol, and shedding it out safely. And you can do this. And when I, this is very interesting, when I did this visualization, immediately my body started to relax just by itself. I didn't even have to tell myself to relax. And my breathing started to become very deep and longer. So just by itself, just because of this visualization alone. So my body then did what it needed to do in order to get that done, what I was visualizing. So visualization it creates an energy. It is very real, it is an energy, and it's there, and it's real, and your body will follow up with completing that, and manifesting that into complete action. And it really works, and it's amazing. So that's what I definitely wanted to talk about this. I wanted to pass that on to other people in case they haven't heard about it. He's become very famous very fast because the word gets around. Like I give you the information, other people will give other 100 people that same information, and so on. And he doesn't even need to advertise himself very much, because what he teaches is true empowerment. And we can really transfer this method towards, and he started out doing this with making his body warm in the winter time, because where he lives it gets very cold. I don't know if he still lives in Denmark or if he moved to LA. I think he moved to LA because he is constantly working with people there and stuff, and giving interviews and doing actions and projects, and very, very creative, amazing, wonderful person. And I would love to meet Wim Hof one day. Would be amazing. And so I wanted to address that, and maybe people can try that out. That would be very great, because that's true empowerment, those things. And also Thich Nhat Hanh teaches breathing exercises and mindfulness training, and better feeling thoughts about other people and situations, and better assessment of other people, so that we don't have to fall into the pits of anger and hatred. And I see so many people on the internet do this. And it can be avoided, we can avoid going into that direction. We could, if we become very mindful of our thoughts and our actions. Thoughts they are the pre-manifestations of action. So it's it's an it's an energy that gets generated. So I can either generate a very productive thought, or I can generate a thought that will not get me in the right direction. So that causes conflict and so on. So we really have that in our hands. We have that choice of generating either a beneficial, healing thought and energy, or one that goes in the backwards direction, one that causes conflict and more sorrow. You know, people need to become aware of that, of what they say to someone else. It's so important, you know. So I get insulted a lot, for example. What does that do? You know, that just lashes out for them. They feel this instant gratification of, I got even, or whatever, or, you know, that just the trolling alone, this, you know, if they can lash out against someone else, they can, that's, it's a pseudo feeling of being better, not having to face their own issues. And I often see double standard in people. It's just happens so often, you know, and particularly in very sexist men. And I had debates on YouTube with very, very sexist men and boys even. I was very shocked to see there was this one 15-year-old boy, very fat, obviously some kind of spoiled rich kid, who was actually the meanest and the most sexist of all there, and unbelievably hurtful towards the women who were standing up for their own existence, basically, you know, for their own beingness. And this guy came in there, he butzed in there and like a klutz, and he threw his fat against them, basically. He threw his whole fat body against them verbally, you know, without any regard at all, saying that women are useless, you know, he's gonna get a robot woman, and so on. It got so, I tried to talk reason into him, and I was nice to him the whole time, but he wouldn't listen. So he became so abusive in the end that I had to block him. And that's a good thing on the internet, you know, that we can block people, and we should, you know, we should block people when it gets too much for us, and we need to pay attention to this. When does it get too much? You know, when when is when does a situation evolve where you feel like, and you have to be very introspective with this, where you feel like this is not going anywhere, this is not good for me, so I think I should end it, or not write back, or, yeah, in some cases block someone. This is very helpful, and we need to do this. And no one owes someone else a response or an email back. And I've been through these things so many times, also recently with quite a number of people, where I decided, oh, you know, I need to take it easy, and I need to protect myself. And I need to focus more on my artwork, and I cannot help the world, the whole world. I cannot, you know, I'm just one person. I cannot please everyone in the world. I cannot give everyone what everyone needs. Obviously, you know, I can't be there for everyone at once. But that's why I make videos and write blogs and books. No one's looking at it, but I do it because I'm trying to be there for everyone at once. You know, I've been also, it's very interesting, I've been in those psychic reading groups on Facebook, and what I saw there, I mean, there's like it's a whole melting pot of different beliefs and different people from different walks of life in there. Even some men, even some redneck men were in there, and it's kind of made me kind of sad, you know. So they so desperately wanted to know. I gave someone a reading, because I do see what's going on with people, and I have to be careful though, with you can't tell someone everything you see at once. They cannot process that information. That would be so hurtful and so terrible for the ego, and the ego is a defense mechanisms there to protect the person. So one has to be very careful with that, what we say to anyone who's actually seeking that information, even, particularly not say it to people who are not seeking it, but anyone even who, and I remember Mara said that too, spiritual therapist who has clients in San Francisco, I think, and she said that she's been in many interviews, and people were interviewers in particular who are not really tuned into it and not working on themselves. Interviewers are often people who have a very high self-esteem and very, they feel very prestigious, and so they're like going the opposite direction. It's a self-defense mechanism again. It's a overcompensation for that what is not there originally. So that's the ego doing this to protect them. So when they ask Mara, tell me something about me, let's do like a demo here for all the people to see, right? They don't know what they're asking. They don't know what they're getting into when they ask her that question, because what if the truth comes back, And there's a Twilight Zone episode made about exactly that subject, where there's this medium, this guy who he just made that up. He made it up. That was a super, 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 super idea of that filmmaker. A medium guy who made it up was together with his friends. They just brainstormed this up. They needed money, so he decided, you're gonna be my manager, and I'm gonna be the medium, the channeler. And they set up events, they start slow, and slowly it's picking up pace, people are being fascinated with what he says to them, and it's pretty global and general what he says, so it can be applied to almost every person, like a fortune teller. And there's so much quackery going on out there. And there's a whole school to teach people how to be a quack, and how to, tell people about the future or connect with dead ones and stuff like this. And anyway, in this episode of the Twilight Zone, they start to become successful more and more and more. And so, but suddenly, because this energy that he created by playing this channeler, this energy started to pick up and started to become autonomous, and actually started to give him that what he was playing in reality. So suddenly he did become someone else. He did invite something else into him. A different entity, a different energy started to come into him and speak through him. And it happened during an interview where the interviewer was this real, like a sociopathic type of person who didn't give a hoot about anyone and just cared about himself and his money and fame, and he wanted to do a demo and said, "Oh, do a demo, yeah. Show the customers show the audience what you can do." But, of course he didn't want him to be truthful. No. So, but suddenly this other entity took over his body and he started to tell that interviewer or the host or whatever radio host, he started to tell him all kinds of things about him that were not very pleasant. And immediately the guy, the interviewer, got very pale in the face and started to get very angry because the ego took over and didn't want to hear it, and he shut him up, and he just brought this entire interview to a very quick end. I don't know how the entire film ended, what happened. So it's been a while that I've seen this, but that stuck with me, just this scene, because that's also what Mara was talking about in real life, that she would tell people something about them, and they would be so hurt and offended, and it would be so awkward and so embarrassing, particularly um, caught off guard, and that in front of a very large audience live then, so that's not such a great idea. But on the internet, I give a harmless reading to someone that may be seen by some other people, because it's an official post. But and it was very interesting how the managers of these groups, how one after another removed me and my posts very quickly, because there was some truth in it that was not sitting very well with people. But you know to, I see through this, and that was a boost to my ego, because I know when someone removes my post that's completely innocent, then I know I was onto something. But yeah, this is how it works. And there was this one hunter guy, he didn't say he was a hunter, but I saw it right away. I saw, uh, there were about three, not mediums, but three psychics, including myself. And this one woman in particular from Morocco, gosh, uh, I was on edge, because what she also said about me didn't know me at all. It was right on. It was not global, that you could use towards everyone. She said, I my ancestors, my energetic ancestors are blue beings, and that is very very interesting, because I have that blue god, and she didn't know about this, so it's very wacky, and very eerie. But yeah, no one knows the full truth about. And the thing is that there is no such thing as the full truth. That is what it is all about truth. Is there is no such thing as a completeness. That's what David Bohm always pointed out to. He said, "Be careful about the word all," and he kept correcting them, even if they used the word all in a very minor way of expressing something, in a very, just like using language. He still reminded them and said, always be careful about the word all, because there's no such thing as all. It's endlessness, and in this endlessness there's also endless discoveries, and nothing is really stagnated in anything. So everything is in a perpetual becoming and flowing, even if it is very slow, like this microfiber material here that is sun resistant, very excellent, will last me a lifetime, and will last another 200 years, unless this planet becomes like Venus. but then it will definitely go up in flames, or it will melt. It will actually melt into a dripping plastic because it's made out of fossil fuels. But it looks like silk. It's really amazing stuff. So just this example, the glass of the windows is also going to melt. It's also going to chip away at some point, and it's also going to become brittle at some point. The trees in front of the window are hopefully going to stay with the next owner of this property, but there's no guarantee. I cannot control all of these things. There's a living dynamic in everything that has its own dynamic, that has its own will and own direction and movement, rather use that word than direction. Sometimes there's a bit of a direction in it, but that can twist and twirl, and it can change course, and all kinds of things can happen. As Jiddu Krishnamurti said, there's no such thing as psychological security for anyone, because you know you're not in charge about the dynamics of everything, to use this word in a technological way, because in the actual way there is no such thing as everything. Because what I mean by like endlessly, you know endless things. So there is no firmness or locked in security in any endlessness and any endless things. So yeah, language, as we can see, it's very interesting listening to the conversations between Jiddu Krishnamurti and David Bohm, and also Dr. David Chainberg, psychiatrist. I can highly recommend them to everyone because they are eye openers. It's very interesting to listen to them, because language, actually, our language that we use alone is already serves as a brick, serves as a limitation, as an obstacle to really understanding it all, to really diving in, because the language already creates an energy and a mindset of not going further than a certain range of knowledge. And knowledge is that what we learned from the past. It can be useful, but only if we stay open to further exploring and further revisions, because it will always happen that things will be perpetually revised, because just because there is no stagnation of anything, of any kind of matter. And it doesn't require a rocket scientist to see this. You can see it, because you can see it in your everyday life. It's very simple. Every clown like myself can see this. It's everything is in a movement. Why should I think for a second that things are granted in any way? There could be an earthquake and things can tumble down, and the ocean levels are certainly rising, and they're taking down, washing down homes and structures, and people can be in denial about this, but it's still happening. So yeah, that's the dynamic of existence, and a rigid-minded brain isn't going to stop that river from flowing. A rigid-minded brain is what Esther Hicks said, is a person who clings with all their force onto a rock that is sitting in that river. in that water that flows violently around that rock, and that tears on that person, and it keeps tearing until the arms get weak and the person lets go of that rock and falls over and tumbles and gets swept up by the current very violently. And that's why she said, why not surf? Why not learn how to surf with it? Why not learn how to swim with that current? Then we become more flexible, and we will be one with that current and not be hurt. Someone who rides a horse and goes with the flow of the movement of that horse's body, becomes one with that horse's body, is not going to fall off the horse that easily as someone who sits there rigidly like a board, you know. And they're going to be buckled off very quickly. So yeah, that is what life is all about. It's this flow of things, and we have to remind ourselves to breathe and be one with that flow, and not be clinging to anything, yeah? Not be needing anything, not be needing any person, or not make anyone into something greater than you. No one is greater than the other. You are very great and precious, and you need to never forget that. Okay, so you guys take